You influence like a lot of people, like from like guys like Steve Rothery from Marion, or Alex Lifeson from Rush, and even contemporary guy like the guys from Dream Theater, I think, and even a guy like Steven Wilson. I think you
yes.
are a big influence on him as well. And it's always easy like to figure out who you, again, like you influence, but it's always trickier to find out what were your influence. So it's when it started up, especially since like you go from like other rock to progressive rock to world music, that you can classical music, you get like quite a large range.
Well, my influences, first of all, my father, because he played a lot of musical instruments at home, and he played the harmonica. So my first instrument was harmonica, and then 10 years after that, guitar came along. It's a big jump from harmonica to guitar. I never understood, as a child, what was the thing. I used to think, what is it that gives notes? I used to think in my childish language, what gives notes direction? What makes them seem to go up and down? The actual notes themselves, the quality of each note might be the same, but and then it was many years later, when I was literally about the age of 13 or 14, I realized that it was chords, it was harmony that made something, that informed a note in a certain way. And again, it was my father who showed me chords on the guitar. In the late 1950s, I listened to guitar records just like everyone else. I was influenced by the Shadows, the John Barry 7, the pop music of the time, Duane Eddy, and I was sometimes just as interested in the arrangements that went around the songs. For instance, Duane Eddy's "Because They're Young," this very old song that became the theme tune for Luxembourg, Radio Luxembourg. I used to love the string melody that the violins played. I thought, the violins, violas, what have you, the cellos, all of that struck me when I was 9 years old, I think. Struck me as being incredibly sweet. Not sure what year that was released. Was it 1960? Was it might have been 10. 1961 might have been 11. But around about that age, that just before you start to become completely obsessed with girls, there were guitars, and the sound of that thing was extraordinary. As I say, I liked the melody very much and the texture of the strings, and I wasn't really hearing anything else. So string players have always fascinated me, whether they're guitarists or violinists, and the sound of an orchestra together. And then other influences, in the 1950s, of course, you grew up listening to everything on radio. But the songs that stopped me in my tracks were Mario Lanza singing the drinking song from The Student Prince when I was very tiny, the power of his voice, and the sound of a Gluck in classical music, Orfeo and Eurydice, this together, the sound of that. It was Kathleen Ferrier, or Ferrier en français, and something about the sound of her voice and the very melancholic melody. I didn't realise I was listening to classical music. I didn't understand the distinction as a child. And then, of course, all this rock music, all this pop music, the Shadows, John Barry 7, twangy guitars. Started to buy a lot of these sorts of records. And then I thought, there's something right about it, but there's something wrong as well. It sounds a little bit tame about it. I wanted the guitar to do something else. And it wasn't until I heard Brian Jones playing I Want to Be Your Man, the slide solo on that I suddenly realised that was the sound that I thought was just so exciting. It was first time I ever really heard the guitar doing what I consider to be its full potential excitement. You know, it was wild. That was the thing. It had that wild, insanely wild and yet ecstatic quality.
And something French and new at the time. Also, like it must have been like so fresh and so new. Yeah, this kind of sound.
It was fresh and new. It was fresh and new. What I didn't realise was that the Stones had borrowed so much from the Black Bluesmen, Muddy Waters, Hubert Sumlin playing with Howling Wolf, some great guitarists and great harmonica players. I certainly wasn't a great singer. At that time I didn't even think I could sing, you know. I was thinking guitar, harmonica, playing very simple tunes at first, playing guitar and harmonica at the same time, before I realised there were harmonica holders. I was trying to play it, harmonica on the table like this and the guitar like this and the thing falling off, and still I was able to play a tune. Extraordinary thing. Then I think having listened to the Stones, who both Brian Jones and Keith Richards, I think, sounded incredibly exciting to me. Brian Jones' best moment for me was probably I Want to Be Your Man, and Keith Richards' best moment for me was Route 66, that solo on Route 66, that even now I think is perfect. Absolutely perfect. And all those two-note things, it's the most perfect two-note solo anyone has ever done. Drug-free at that time. And fully focused. So when the drug was just the music, the power of the music. I never ever met Keith. I met Mick. I used to pass Brian Jones in the street when I was a kid because he lived in the same area. I met Bill Wyman, had conversations with them. But I think because the Stones combined both guitar and harmonica, both of which I was interested in and both of which I could do, then I think the big revolution for me was hearing Segovia. Up to then I'd really just been concentrating on rock and roll. And then I heard Segovia plays Bach, and I thought, oh wow, you mean that's possible on a guitar as well? And I thought, God, I'll never be that good, I'll never be able to do that, but maybe I can take on an influence. And eventually I did an album, but I recorded many of those pieces myself. In later years I did an album called Tribute, which specialised in those very beautiful, difficult pieces. The Chaconne is one which was written for solo violin by Bach, and it was a commemorative piece to celebrate, or rather commemorate, the death of his first wife. She'd given him many children, and she died very suddenly when he was away for 2 weeks on some business trip, and he came back to find she'd passed. And he wrote this most exquisite piece of music called the Chaconne, or La Chacona in Spanish, I think. Le Chaconne. The word is from the Basque language.
Oh yeah, Basque, yeah.
And it's supposed to be a courtly dance, and also the word means pretty as well.
Okay.
A very slow, somber dance. And it's in D minor, and it just sounds extraordinary. It's very doomy, but also very beautiful. So those are my early influences, and then I think everything really stems from that. Bach and blues. I listen to the Romantics, and I love the melodies that Chopin, Grieg, many of the Russians, Tchaikovsky, Mussorgsky, Rimsky-Korsakov.
It's that blend between the rock, the blues, the classical, all that
all that, and I think the Russians also were writing at times in a very kind of Eastern style, so they were after this sort of Mongolian thing. I think it influenced their work. There was something about it which had I think it's this elemental quality that one recognises in the work of people like Led Zeppelin, frankly.
People knows tapping and sweeping stuff like that. I mean, attributed to guys from the 80s or a guy like Eddie Van Halen mainly. Yes. But you were doing that since Nursery Cryme, basically.
Yes.
But how did you end up figuring it out? It could be cool to play with two hands on the neck.
Yes. Well, I was trying to play one phrase. Probably again, I was trying to play a phrase that sounded like Bach, and it was a triplet phrase. And I wanted to be able to play it fast. And I realised that the way to play it fastest, was to do it all on one string.
Yeah.
So I started to use tapping with my live solos with the band.
Yeah. You might be the first guy who did that. You might be, yeah. You never know, but yeah.
I think, as far as I was concerned, I'd never seen anyone else do it on electric guitar. There was supposed to be some film of someone in 1965 doing it with a nylon guitar. So I don't know if that's...
Okay.
I've got no way of verifying that. It seems like a very good quality film if it was from then, but it was a man playing with nylon and doing it. So he must have had... I think the instrument he had, the strings, if it was acoustic, then they had to be very low
action.
The string, very low action to do that. Very low, almost touching.
Yeah, because on that,
to do it with a nylon, you need.
So there might be another guy, but and Eddie took all the credit with him.
Anyway, but I think Eddie.
They took it to a good level as well. Yeah.
Eddie gave me credit for coming up with that technique. That seems to be where he got it from. Apart from that, I don't know.
Okay. And you were also I think really innovative in the late 70s with the guitar sound on the synthesizer sound on the guitar, this X pickup and MIDI pickup maybe or stuff like that. You were using. I was listening to Seconds Out not so lately, and you were already messing around with some keyboard sound and stuff like that on the guitar.
I think. I was obsessed with trying to make the guitar sound like a keyboard or making it sound like a violin or the human voice. But I still do that kind of thing. It's always, whenever I sit down or stand up, try and play the guitar, just playing a guitar with a new attitude.
Yeah.